I call Dr. Pamji Palmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on the Social Housing Reform Transaction Mandate Bill in its first reading. Mr. Speaker, it's a pleasure to take this call in support of this bill. Mr. Speaker, the social housing reforms are important and they are well on track. Our social housing reforms are about recognizing and understanding families in need. Right. And our focus is to make sure that people, those who need social housing, they get that at the right time and also for the right amount of time. Mr. Speaker, people have different kinds of needs. Some people need long-term state housing, while others are able to move on to private rentals as their circumstances change. So it's about privatizing social housing for people in the greatest need and also providing opportunity to people, those who can move on to private rentals. And this government is keen to work with different organizations to encourage community housing, and that is what this bill is about. This bill is to support the Social Housing Reforms Program by amending the Housing Corporation Act 1974 to provide designated ministers with the authority to transfer Housing New Zealand Corporation properties. And ministers will be able to do that by getting into contracts in the name of Housing New Zealand. And this bill will also help ministers to make sure that Housing New Zealand looks after tenants in those properties which are being transferred. So, Mr. Speaker, those tenants are at the focus of this bill. And the social housing reform program is to provide more social houses through Housing New Zealand and also through community housing providers. This involves transfer of houses from Housing New Zealand to community housing providers. The initial proposal is to transfer 1,000 houses from 1,000 to 2,000 houses from Housing New Zealand houses to community housing providers. Mr. Speaker, this national government cares about people, we care about families, and this national government is committed to look after people, those who need social housing. And this national government is committed to provide income-related rental subsidy for more households. Currently, around New Zealand, there are 62,000 households receiving taxpayer-supported, yes, Mr. Speaker, taxpayer-supported income-related rental subsidy around New Zealand. And this national government has committed to increase that by 3,000 households by 2017-2018. We need these reforms. That's why we need this bill. It's important because there are around 3,600 people. They are assessed as in high need. They are on waiting list on the social housing register. Yes, 3,600 people on the waiting list. And there are around 1,300 Housing New Zealand tenants, and they have applied for a transfer. So, Mr. Speaker, this is a very challenging situation because 1/3 of $18.7 billion Housing New Zealand portfolio is in the wrong place or is of wrong type. For example, Mr. Speaker, 30% of people on the waiting list, they want to get into a one-bedroom house. But if we look at our stock, we have only 9% of houses which are one-bedroom houses. And also people's needs, they change with time, and their needs are not just about housing itself. So it's important to look at other kind of arrangements. And Mr. Speaker, this government has already taken a number of steps to improve the supply of social housing. And if we go back to 2010, after a report from the Housing Shareholders Advisory Group, the government's program has so far included setting up the social housing unit in 2011. This was recommended by that advisory group, and this was to help grow a community housing sector. And also then changing the law in 2013, this was to open social housing to approved non-government providers so that they can receive the same subsidies as Housing New Zealand. And Mr. Speaker, during the 2014 election campaign, the Prime Minister confirmed that we will be moving away from Housing New Zealand's monopoly to a range of social housing providers. And our goal is to have a strong social housing system that people can access and that provides for people's needs. We want to make sure that people are able to get into social houses when they need. We also want to make sure that those houses are of the right size, they are of the right configuration, they are of good quality, and they are in the right kind of area. So the government will continue to be the largest owner of social houses, and it will further increase subsidies for New Zealanders in housing need. And Mr. Speaker, over the next few years, the government wants to see that Housing New Zealand and community housing providers collectively are able to provide more social houses than we have now. And as I said, Housing New Zealand will continue to be by far the largest owner of subsidized houses, and we will ensure that in 2017 it provides at least 60,000 properties. And this is down from 68,000. This is taking into consideration various community housing providers coming on board. And Mr. Speaker, I heard that previous speaker, and just to clarify, tenants in properties which will be sold will continue to stay in those properties, and they will stay in those properties for the duration of their need. And the government will spend more on income-related rent subsidies and ensure that Housing New Zealand has enough capital to redevelop those properties and to look after those properties. And Mr. Speaker, this bill is not about selling state houses. Just to explain to the opposition, yes, it's not about selling state houses. It is about better meeting the needs of tenants by supporting the growth of community housing sector and ensuring that there are more social houses available for people, those who need them. And as I said before, Mr. Speaker, that government will be providing income-related rental subsidy for another 3,000 houses by 2017-2018, so taking that number from 62,000 to 65,000. And the government is committed to both supporting a stronger community housing sector and also investing significantly in Housing New Zealand properties and providing 1.9 billion a year in accommodation support. Mr. Speaker, our focus is on families, not the number of houses owned by the government. Mr. Speaker, we know that tenants' needs can be better met through innovation, through diversity, through providing choice, and that's why we need to involve community housing providers. And community providers, they can provide a wrap-around support to these people, those who need social services, so these people don't have to go to multiple agencies and explain their circumstances. So it makes it really easy for people. And Mr. Speaker, I also heard the member just before me saying that these houses will be sold to Australia. Mr. Speaker, these houses will be sold to organizations which are willing to register with us as community housing providers, and which means that they will have to meet some strict standards. So there are standards they will have to meet, then only they can buy these houses. So there's a strict criteria for them to buy these houses. And properties sold as social houses will continue to remain as social houses unless the government agrees otherwise. And in most cases, when these houses will be transferred, there will be tenants in those houses. They will be looked after. So this bill is about making sure that Housing New Zealand looks after those people during that transfer process. And if there is any redevelopment of those houses, it will be made sure that those people are provided proper accommodation as per their need. And Mr. Speaker, people have complex needs. And to provide for those complex needs, the government need to open to work with different parties, non-government organizations, community-based organizations, and that is what we are doing. And so, Mr. Speaker, I support this bill and commend the bill to the House. Thank you.
Members, this debate has concluded. The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party votes? Party votes called for? Or ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
32 votes opposed.
Green Party.
14 votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
12 votes opposed.
Maori Party.
2 votes in favour.
Ag New Zealand.
1 vote in favour.
United Future.
1 vote in favour.
Members, the ayes are 63, the noes are 58. The motion is agreed to.
Social Housing Reform Transaction Mandate Bill, first reading.
The question is that the Social Housing Reform Transition Mandate Bill be considered by the Social Services Committee. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Call on Government Order of the Day number 3.
Interrupted debate on the first reading of the Health Practitioner Replacement of Statutory Reference to Medical Practitioners Bill.
The next call goes to the National Party. I call Jackie